Chapter 17 deals with the last part of the life cycle that we haven't talked about, which are the older years, kind of towards the end of the life cycle. This was important because this is the segment of the population that's growing the fastest. People 85 years and older are the fastest growing segment of the population. So everybody's going to age, everybody's going to get older. What we're going to talk about is there are some things you can do to slow the aging process, or as you age, maintain a higher quality of life. Okay? What do you think I mean by quality of life? Or if it's easier, give me an example. Okay, let's say you've got two people who are 90 years old. One is bedridden in a nursing home. One still lives by himself, is able to, live in his own home, sees friends, sees family. Who has the better quality of life? They're both 90.
The one that lives by himself.
Yeah, the one that still has the independence and mobility and that type of thing. So that's what we're going to talk about, is there's a lot of things you can do to improve your quality of life, which I think is what we all want to have as we get older. They talk about life expectancy. Our life expectancy has increased. Large majority of that, or reasoning for that, is medicine and just advances in medicine and treating diseases. Women, and they give you average life expectancies. Women tend to live a little bit longer than men. Not always, though. These are just averages. Okay, so these are the different age groups of the population. 65 years and older is in that dark orange at the top. So you can see that has steadily been increasing since, we started the 1900s, but go into 2010. And this is why you are seeing such high demand for nursing homes, assisted living, those type of places. Okay, so as I mentioned, aging is inevitable, but research has shown that there are some things we can do as individuals to slow the process down, or maybe we don't slow it down, but we maintain a higher quality of life. And they talk about two terms, physiological age and chronological age. Okay? Your chronological age is the one that we base on birthday. Somebody says, how old are you? And you tell them your chronological age based on when you were born, right? Okay. But let's take two 60-year-old women. Maybe you've met one and later you're shocked to find out she's 60 because she seems so much older and frail and just not with it. And you were like, she's only 60? I thought she was like 70 or 80. And maybe she's not as mobile, she would have a higher physiological age likely than her chronological age. So her body is aging faster than the age based on her birth date. But then we've also met people where, let's say you find out another woman is 60 and you're like, oh my gosh, she looks great for 60. She's so active, she's, fit, she's doing so much, her mind's great. You think I thought she was 45 or 50. She has a very young chronological age, or her physiological age. Her physiological age is less than her chronological age. Okay? She has probably taken care of herself. She stays active. She eats a healthy diet. She gets sleep. She takes care of herself. And so that shows in her physiological age. Okay? So they looked at health habits of older adults to see what really had the greatest influence on long-term health and on your physiological age. Because we can't change our chronological age. We're born with that. We're stuck with that from birth, right? But we can control our physiological age somewhat. Okay? So they looked at older individuals who had lower physiological ages than chronological. Okay? And here's what they found. Here's some habits that they all practiced. They ate healthy, well-balanced meals. Didn't go all day and just eat like one big meal, a day. They did some kind of physical activity. They didn't smoke. They didn't use alcohol, or if they did, they used it in moderation. They maintained a healthy body weight. They got adequate and regular sleep. And this is a really big one. I think a lot of people take sleep for granted, but this one's really key. Sleep is when your body repairs itself and recovers from the day and gets ready for the next day. So adequate sleep is really key. Relieving stress, how you manage stress is really key. And we've probably all known people everyone has stresses or stressors, but there are certain people who seem to able to cope with it better or handle it better versus, others, I had some friends when I was in college who just got all distraught when they had any kind of exam and just, could not handle the stress. And then having a community of friends or family, people that you talk to regularly, that you can rely on, that you can call if you need something. These were all really key in having a lower physiological age. Okay, let's talk a little bit about physical activity. And remember, physical activity is basically just moving, keeping your body active. So it can include things like exercise, like an exercise class or running. But it doesn't necessarily have to. It's just being active, being mobile, moving your body. And it really is key for everyone, but particularly adults and as they get older. Benefits. Typically have a lower weight, which is going to affect your health. Greater flexibility, increased endurance, better balance, which is a big one later in life as your sense of balance isn't as good because if you're off balance, then you're more likely to fall, and if you fall, then you're more likely to break a bone or that type of thing. And people who are physically active have a longer lifespan. Physical activity prevents or delays decrease in muscle mass. As you age, we're going to talk in a few slides that it's natural to lose muscle mass or lean body mass, but you really don't want to. So you want to maintain what you've got. And it also provides strength. You also are able to eat a little bit more, which is a nice thing. So you're usually getting higher nutrient intakes. And being physically active is the biggest predictor of mobility later in life. Meaning, are you going to be bedridden? Are you going to be on a walker? Okay? People who are not physically active are the ones who are more likely to be bedridden or own a walker or not able to, walk or live on their own, that type of thing. They give some exercise guidelines for adults. This is going to vary so much person to person, and it's essentially the same as what every other individual needs. A combination of aerobic strength, balance, and flexibility. It's going to be unique to that person. Have they always been physically active or are they just starting? And to their health conditions. But incorporating all of these is key. Okay, let's talk a little bit about diet. There is some research looking at restricting calories in animals and in humans to prolong life. And it has shown positive results, or slow if you eat less calories than you need. It can slow the aging process in animals, and they have fewer related diseases. Now, part of that is likely due to you're at a healthy body weight. Okay, if you're eating less calories than you need each day, then you're not going to be overweight or obese, which brings a whole host of health issues. But the research hasn't been as clear-cut with humans. They say if you take in about 70% of what your calorie needs would be. So that's a nice little chunk. A lot of us can do it if we're trying to lose weight for a little while, but for the rest of your life, that's kind of hard. You don't want to be malnourished, but you don't want to get, you definitely want to have a calorie deficit. So, I don't know, I'd rather eat the calories than eat only 70% of the calories of what I need and maybe have a longer life. Okay. Stress is one of the major things that makes you age. Stress is natural, or it's a natural part of life. It can be physical or it can be psychological. Physical stresses would be things like alcohol, drugs, pollution, chemicals. Psychological stress would be things like exams, a divorce, a death, losing a job, having financial issues, that type of thing. And both of those cause both hormonal stress responses in the body. Let's see. And depending on how long that stress lasts and how well you handle it has an effect on the body. So if that stress goes on a long time, let's say you lost your job and you've got a family to provide for and you don't find another job for 6 months. Well, that stress, that weight of not having a job went on for 6 months. So that was a long period to have stress, that kind of stress. So that's going to take a toll on the body, okay? Whereas like an exam you might stress for 1 or 2 days or for a week or something, and then it's over. So it's not as extended, it doesn't have as much of an effect. But the more you can do for both of those situations to try to cope and deal with the stress and manage the stress, things like meditation, things like counseling, if that helps, yoga, exercise, going for a walk, playing with pets, that kind of thing. All of those things can help decrease the stress effect that's going on in your body. As I mentioned, the stress response in your body is going to be both nervous and hormonal, involves both of those systems. And depending on how severe the stress is and how long it is going to be really what affects the impact that it has on your overall body. Typically have kind of different responses between the two sexes. Women tend to be more what they call tend or befriend. They reduce stress by reaching out to friends, talking to families, being around people. That's one of their coping mechanisms. Men, typically not. Typically, they more shut themselves off. They keep it to themselves. So you typically have two different ways stress is handled between the sexes. Okay, physiological changes as you get older. Body weight. Now, we have more overweight or obese individuals. So this is definitely a factor with older adults. But at the same time, you don't want older adults to be too thin, because that's going to affect how they're able to bounce back from diseases or illnesses or injuries. So ideally, you want to have a BMI, if you're an older adult, between 23.5 to 27.5. The 25 is where you move to overweight. But if I saw an 85-year-old patient and she had a 26.5 BMI, I wouldn't suggest she loses weight. Now, if she was 30, yes, I'd say, hey, you might want to try to lose a few pounds to get into the healthy body range. But at age 85, that's okay. Now, if she was obese and had like a 32, then I might try to get her to lose a few pounds, try to get into the overweight range. But you don't want to see older adults that have a really low body weight in that lower healthy range or in that underweight range, because that is going to make them not able to bounce back from illnesses and injuries as well. Okay, more changes to the body, and I mentioned this one already, but you're going to lose muscle mass. It is natural to slowly lose some muscle mass, and this is referred to as sarcopenia. A lot of older adults may lose some weight, maybe because of medical treatments, medications. Maybe they're isolated somewhat or don't have access to as much food. They usually aren't doing as much physical activity. So when you stop doing as much physical activity, even if it's just walking the dog or something, that's going to reduce your muscle mass. Other things that put you at risk for sarcopenia is cigarette smoking, obesity, and inflammation. Nutrition and exercise really play the key roles. You want to get adequate calories and protein, and then you want to get regular physical activity. Stay active to maintain that muscle mass. Okay, other things that become affected. Your immune system or your immunity, and something they call inflammation or inflammaging. Your immune system, just like every other system in your body, as you age, is not going to work quite as well, quite as efficiently or as quickly to respond to things. Also, as you become ill or you have injuries or get diagnosed with things, your immune system also becomes overstimulated. So you've got an overstimulated immune system that's not functioning as well as it did when you were 20, 30, 40. Okay? This combination of an inefficient immune system and an overreactive or overstimulated immune system is what they call inflammaging. And the effect is kind of chronic inflammation in the body, which is going to lead to frailty, illness, death. You may have noticed how, like, if let's say, an elderly person gets diagnosed with pneumonia or something, and maybe they get over it, but they just never seem quite the same again. They seem more frail. They seem more prone to diseases, and maybe kind of like a steady downhill, kind of gradual decline after that. That's related to the inflammaging. Things to how to help your immune system function better. Regular physical activity. That's been the answer for a lot of things. But staying active. And again, this doesn't mean they have to go to the gym and get on the treadmill. This just means being active. Grocery shopping, walking the dog, washing dishes, being active, moving your body. And then lots of antioxidants, which are going to be found in your fruits and vegetables. Okay, changes to your GI tract. We mentioned the immune system's not working as well, where the GI system or the GI tract isn't working as well as it did back when you were 20, 30, 40. Your intestinal walls, which are mainly muscles, they're going to lose strength and elasticity, so stuff may not always move as smoothly or efficiently through your GI tract like it used to. Some of the secretions that your stomach, large intestine, small intestine, pancreas secrete may slow down, or they may not secrete as much. A lot of times you see diminished appetite in older individuals. This can be for a variety of reasons. One, they're not as active, so their bodies may not need as many calories. A lot of times, though, you see medications that cut their appetite some. You see more constipation because you don't have as much motility, or things are not moving efficiently and smoothly as they should through the GI tract. Atrophic gastritis. This is where you have issues with digestion and absorption of nutrients. You aren't secreting as much hydrochloric acid or intrinsic factor in your stomach and small intestine, and so you can't absorb all the nutrients that you need to. So if I remember what vitamin you have to, intrinsic factor is needed to absorb what vitamin? B12. So when you see a decrease in intrinsic factor being secreted, a lot of times you'll find B12 deficiency. And a lot of times you find the B12 deficiency first, and then you figure out it's from atrophic gastritis or a decrease in hydrochloric acid. an intrinsic factor. Other things that you see, dysphagia. Dysphagia refers to any difficulty in swallowing. One of the most common reasons this occurs is someone has a stroke. Okay? And it may affect part of their mouth or part of their throat. It may affect the muscles right around their mouth or on one side of their mouth. So they can't, when they take a bite of food or a sip of fluid, they can't hold it in their mouth. They can't keep it in there long without it falling out so they can chew it up and swallow it. It may be that they have the muscles are effective for swallowing. So they can get it in their mouth and chew it, but they have trouble swallowing. So there's lots of different issues that you see that have to do with trouble actually swallowing the food. And these can lead to nutritional deficiencies or malnutrition if the diet isn't altered to help the person eat. Tooth loss. Edentulous is a term that you'll see, and it refers to a lack of teeth. The dental care was not as good as it is now. They didn't have fluoride in the water. So you have your older adults right now, your elderly individuals, a lot of them are missing all or some of their teeth. Okay? Can make, or maybe they need to have teeth pulled. It can make eating very painful. Make you want to kind of avoid eating. A lot of them have dentures, but that doesn't mean they wear them. That doesn't mean the dentures fit. So when you have teeth or dental issues, it's going to affect the types of foods that you can eat. You're going to have less variety. You also typically eat softer foods, which you're going to have usually less fiber. You aren't going to hand someone with no teeth a big apple to eat. So usually lower in fiber, sometimes lower in vitamins. Other issues that you see, sensory losses. Not necessarily all of them. It may just be some, but vision. You may not be able to see as well. You may need glasses. Some of y'all may have already seen that. I didn't need any kind of glasses when I was younger, and now I have to have them if I want to watch the TV from far away or something. So that one may be gradual and may not be just in your elderly years. Mobility. You may have been able to walk around the block, and now it's a challenge for you to get to your mailbox. Mobility is a big one. Hearing, taste. A lot of times you lose some taste perception. This can also be related to medicine, though. And then smell. You may lose some sense of smell. So all of these, in effect, can affect what an elderly person eats or doesn't eat, or their appetite or lack of appetite. Okay, so we've talked about the physiological changes. Let's look at the psychological changes, because these can have just as much of an impact. Unfortunately, the elderly years, they can be really good years, but a lot of times they can kind of be sad, depressing years as well. You may see someone who's lost their spouse that they've been married to for 50 years. A lot of times the children are all moved away. Their close friends may get moved to nursing homes or moved away. So it can kind of be a sad time. So it's not abnormal to see depression in elderly individuals. And when you're depressed, you usually don't feel like you don't want to get up and cook. You don't want to make a meal. You may lose your appetite. So they found that support and companionship and interaction with people, your friends, your family, is really key in helping with that. Economic changes. You may you may have saved for retirement, or you may not have. And now that you're retired and you can't work anymore, you may not have enough money to get by, or you may be living in assisted living and you don't have much control over your money. Someone else controls your money. So that can have a psychological impact. Social changes. If you've had a spouse die, or if you're living alone and you can't really get out of the house to see people, can't get out to grocery shop or to get food, those are going to limit your ability to, or your desire to get out or make meals and get food and make sure you get plenty of nutrition. Okay, so they talk about the dietary reference tapes. They divide older adults into two categories. One category that's 51 to 70, and then 71 and above. Now, the nutrition recommendations are essentially the same as what we've been talking about all semester for what healthy adults need. There are just certain things older adults may need more of, or you may need to pay more attention to. It's hard to set specific standards for older adults because it's going to vary so much on their particular needs. Their body's health, their body's disease state or lack of disease state or medication. So that's why it really has to be done on an individualized basis. Water is key though. Your thirst response decreases as you age. So it is not uncommon for elderly individuals to forget to drink water and become dehydrated. And if someone is bedridden, dehydration puts them at big risk for pressure sores and infection. Also, not in addition to your thirst response decreasing, your total amount of water in your body is a little bit less than when you were younger. Prevent it, you want to make sure they're getting at least 6 glasses of water daily. Another factor in this that sometimes keeps older individuals from drinking fluids or staying hydrated is if they're having issues with incontinence. And they may want to avoid fluids, which in the end is not good because you don't want to, it's going to do more harm to be dehydrated. Okay, your energy, your calorie needs decline about 5% every decade, every 10 years. And the main reason for this is because you're slowly losing muscle mass. Your nutrient needs are still high based on the amount of calories you need. And protein is really important. Protein is going to help you hang on to that lean body mass that you do have. And sometimes when people aren't able to eat much by mouth, they'll put them on liquid protein supplements like Boost or Ensure with added protein just to make sure they're getting enough. Carbohydrates are still needed just like they are when you're an adult. High fiber foods as well as hydration can help with constipation. Moderate intake of fat, don't want to go too low, but then you also don't want to go too high. Some vitamins and minerals. B12, since a lot of times you'll start having less intrinsic factor to absorb the B12 that you're taking in. Vitamin D. Vitamin D you get from dairy products. I'll put calcium in here as well. You get calcium and vitamin D from dairy products. A lot of times older adults will start avoiding dairy because they aren't making as much of the enzyme to break down lactose. So they'll start avoiding dairy products. Also, vitamin D comes from exposure to sun. So if you're bedridden or you're in the house all day, you're not going to get any vitamin D from there either. Other ones they mention are folate, iron, and zinc that you want to watch out for. Talk about dietary supplements. Most older adults take dietary supplements, whether it's individual vitamins, minerals, multivitamins. You want to be careful about this because these can interact with medications. A lot of older adults tend to be on medications. Also, food is going to be your best source rather than a pill. Okay, they give, this is just kind of a summary of the different nutrition concerns that we've gone over. This is in your book. They talk a little bit about some different things that you see in particular in older adults. Cataracts is one. This is where the clear part over the eye becomes clouded and it's hard to see. It can lead to blindness if it's not treated. Research has shown that eating lots of fruits and vegetables with antioxidants in them can help prevent cataracts. Macular degeneration. This is another thing that affects your vision. It's where the macula or the center of the retina starts to deteriorate, and it can also lead to vision issues as well as blindness. And again, antioxidants as well as some of your omega-3 fatty acids are really key in helping prevent this. Arthritis. There's several different kinds of arthritis. Osteoarthritis is where the cartilage in the joints, in your knee joint and your elbow joint deteriorates. So now you're left with bone rubbing bone, and that's painful. You see, or osteoarthritis is related with being overweight. So there's more weight on the body, so there's more weight on those joints. Activity is one of the things that helps prevent it and maintaining a healthy weight. Rheumatoid arthritis is another form of arthritis, but it's related to the immune system. It's where the immune system almost kind of attacks itself and destroys the cartilage and some of the bone. But again, moving joints becomes painful. Gout is where you have a buildup of uric acid in your joints. This one seems to be more prone to men. And you're more likely to see it when you eat large amounts of protein, typically. And the brain. This is one of the biggest things that can affect nutritional status of an elderly or older person. Dementia. Most people are going to start to have some kind of dementia. It may be very mild. It may just be have trouble remembering things, or it may be very severe. They may not remember their friends, they may not remember their address, their phone number, those types of things. This is due to both genetic and environmental factors. It is a normal part of the aging process, so a little is to be expected. But when it goes beyond the expected and presents a safety issue or a health issue, that's when you've got to worry about it. You worry about their nutritional status when it gets to a point where they don't remember to eat, or they leave a pot of water on the stove boiling and totally forget about it. So that's when you really kind of worry about it from a nutrition and safety standpoint. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, but this is an abnormal deterioration of the brain. This is where plaques develop in the brain. There are some drugs that can treat it, but none of them are perfect yet. There's a lot of research looking at this. But again, it can affect their nutritional status and what they eat. If they eat, they can forget to eat. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about food choices and what motivates or influences older adults and what they choose to eat. This population, this stage of the population is going to be incredibly diverse. You may find an 80-year-old that is super healthy, lives on her own, walks every day, and then you may find another 80-year-old that can't get out of bed. And so they're going to have it's going to run a huge gamut of what they can and can't do and what their needs are. Older adults tend to spend more money on food to eat at home. Remember, a lot of these older adults went through the Depression, so they are less likely to eat out. They're going to be very economical. They're going to be more likely to buy groceries and cook them at home or prepare them at home than they are to get pickup or takeout or that type of thing. They are more likely to get your classic dishes, whereas a lot of your younger populations like the ethnic or fusion cuisine, Mexican, Italian, and they like their classic, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, or kind of your classic dishes. So they're less little adventurous with flavors and food choices. Malnutrition is an issue. They say 1 in 6 older adults are malnourished. A lot of times this is because of something that's happened. Maybe a spouse has died. Maybe the person can't get out of the house. Maybe the person doesn't have money to buy food. But some life event has occurred that has led to depression or the inability to get food or provide food for themselves. There is one of the best food assistance programs for older adults is Meals on Wheels. We do have that one in Tuscaloosa. It's where they deliver meals to a person's home. I think during the week they can deliver up to 2 meals a day. And then I think you can pay a little and get meals on the weekends as well. But this is good because not only is the older person getting a nutritious meal, hot nutritious meal, but there's also this regular social interaction. Even if it's someone just bringing it to the door saying, "Hey, Miss Smith, how are you?" But someone just checking on them regularly, which can be really key if it's an older adult who lives by themselves. If older adults live by themselves, it can be hard to purchase single servings, or you cook something, you've got 6 servings left. So there's those challenges. You worry about foodborne illness, food going bad, or they leave it in the refrigerator for 2 weeks and then eat it. And that type of thing. One thing I want to point out too is one of the best ways, and I didn't see it in the slides, to promote eating and prevent malnutrition is, for older adults, is called congregate meals. Basically that means a meal in a group setting. What they found is that when you are around people, or particularly older individuals, you're going to eat more. And appetite is usually an issue with older adults. So when you bring people together, maybe they get together at a senior center, maybe they all come to the dining room at a nursing home, but when you bring them together, they're going to eat more and they're going to get more nutrients. So congregate meals are really key, and plus you're getting that socialization, which is good psychologically as well.